Andre Lee Thomas, born March 17, 1983, is an American convicted murderer and death row inmate known for removing both his eyeballs in separate incidents and ingesting one of them. In 2004, Thomas killed his estranged wife, Laura Boren, his 4-year-old son, and her 1-year-old daughter in Sherman, Texas. He cut open the chest of all three victims and he removed the two children's hearts. Rowdy Nation TV, welcome back to the channel. Do me a favor, click that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so anytime I drop a video, you guys can be notified. Let's get to it. Thomas, whose mental health problems began with auditory hallucinations at the age of about 10 years old, was in the 9th grade when him and Boren became pregnant with his child. They married when he was like 18 years old, but they separated soon after. Now, in the weeks leading up to the murders, Thomas had suicidal thoughts. He drank heavily and he used cold medication as a recreational drug. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this story comes to us from out of Texas. A lot of people, young people in Texas, like to use the cold medication. I think they call it lean. So I think this brother was on that lean, and mixing that with somebody who's already having suicidal thoughts and hallucinations can't be good. Now, in jail, a few days after his arrest, Thomas pulled out one of his eye sockets. A jury rejected the insanity defense and sentenced him to death on a capital murder conviction. In 2008, he removed his other eye and ingested it. That's right, people, you heard me. He ate his other eye. And that's why we're going to get into this story about death row, the death row warrants that's been issued to mental illness patients, right? How do you guys feel about that? Leave a comment in my comment section and let me know, because I understand a lot of people go to jail for murder, right? But rarely have we seen people go to jail and they pull their eyes out and then they eat one, right? So leave a comment in my comment section and let me know how you feel about this, right? Now, Thomas was diagnosed with schizophrenia after his arrest, and his case has raised ethical questions about executing the mentally ill. His trial verdict was upheld by a state criminal appeals court in 2008 and by a federal appeals court in 2021. While he is still under a death sentence, Thomas is housed in a Texas prison facility for inmates with psychiatric problems. Thomas is scheduled to be executed on April 5th, 2023. So we're talking about mental illness and the death penalty, right? We're going to get into it. Now, we already know that Andre Lee Thomas committed this crime, very horrendous crime, and under any other circumstances, I would be like, you committed this crime, man, get him out of here, right? And a lot of people feel that way regardless of whether he's mentally incompetent to stand trial, or whether he's faking it or not. Some people, they don't care. You committed the crime. I mean, I don't care what your mental state was. You deserve the death penalty. There's a lot of people like that. And, this is a horrendous crime. And we're just questioning his sanity. That's what we're talking about right now. So 10 years before Thomas was born, his uncle was fatally shot by Thomas's grandmother's husband. Despite his domestic disadvantages, Thomas seemed to thrive for the first few years of his life. Now, when Thomas was around 10 years old, his behavior began to change. He told some of his schoolmates that he heard angels and demons arguing in his head. And at one point, he said he was Raiden, a fictional character of the Mortal Kombat game. I never played that game, so I'm not familiar who... Believe it or not, I never played Mortal Kombat. But by the time he was 13 years old, he had made 2 suicide attempts by cutting his wrists. He had a series of arrests around about the age of 15, including one for stealing a car. Now, he was placed on suicide watch after developing suicidal thoughts during a short stay in a juvenile detention. But he did not receive any ongoing mental health services following this release. So, later on in life, after Thomas had been dating, this young woman, Laura Boren, for several years, she became pregnant and gave birth in August of 1999 to a baby they named Andre Jr. Now, after which Thomas had dropped out of high school in the ninth grade. But he did, he came back and he earned a high school equivalency diploma. And he worked several jobs so that he could, support his baby and his family. Now, that's tremendous for a brother who's suffering with all these suicidal thoughts. He's trying to get his life together, right? He's trying to have a family, and I think he's trying to stay on the right track. It sounds like to me right here. So what drove him to go crazy, right? To do this horrendous crime. Now, he married Boren on his 18th birthday, and in 2001, she was 17 years old. And Thomas and Boren lived together briefly at Thomas's mother's house. 2 weeks after they got married, Thomas' mother forced them to move out the house. Now, at that point, Boren and her son, she moved in with her parents, while Thomas moved in with one of his brothers. He had 5 brothers, by the way. Boren and Thomas separated for about 9 months into the marriage. Boren later moved with her new boyfriend, and they had a child, Leah Hughes, and that happened in February of 2003. Now, they had separated, and seems to me that, they got back together, apparently, right? So I'm just wondering, in my mind, he got back together with this, with his son's mom, and she had another kid. Could that have something to do with his psychosis? Maybe, he didn't feel, what kind of feelings did he have towards this kid, right? That's what I'm trying to ask. He got back with the, especially for a person who got a mental illness, right? And she done had a baby by another man. I'm just throwing this out there, right? Now, after the marriage broke up, Thomas experienced more intense delusions and suicidal thoughts. He obsessed over apocalyptic concepts in the book of Revelations, and he had it was difficult for him to keep a job. Now, Thomas was accused of stabbing his brother during a fight, but he was not indicted, and his brother was committed for psychiatric treatment. His brother was committed for psychiatric. Am I reading this right? His brother was committed for psychiatric treatment. Is there something more about this story? Does psychosis and mental illness run in the family? I don't know all that. I haven't dived that deep into this story to find out, but it sounds like it, right? If that's what I'm reading. Now, living on his own, Thomas had a difficulty of keeping the utilities paid or paying his bills. So Boren began limiting the amount of visitation with his son. Thomas had begun to believe that his estranged wife was a Jezebel and that his son was the Antichrist. He thought that the meaning of life was contained in the message within the images on the US dollar bill. Now, this dude sounds really, really crazy to me, right? Regardless of the fact, and I know a lot of people might say, I don't care if he's crazy or not, he still deserves the death penalty. But what we're talking about right now is the sanity, mental illness, and the death penalty. A lot of people out there, I don't know. What do you think the ratio is of people faking it versus like, yo, man, this dude is like really seriously just crazy, bro. A lot of homeless people out there that's on the street have mental problems. So I'm pretty sure, what's the ratio of homeless people out there that's crazy and just homeless people out there just living on the streets? What's the ratio of people on death row who say they're crazy and who's not crazy, but who really are just, need some mental help? But do we really care? If they did such a heinous crime that they can't come back from, that you feel they don't deserve to walk amongst us, I don't care if they're crazy or not. You know what I'm saying? You did the crime. Now, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. A lot of people feel that way. So, he would sometimes cover his mouth with duct tape and refuse to speak to his family. His psychosis was just getting really out of hand. Now, in the spring of 2004, still struggling with a long-standing alcohol abuse and psychological difficulties, Thomas began engaging in the recreational use of quercetin co-medication. Now, guys, let me know if anybody knows if that's lean, if that's, what is that? Quercetin co-medication? Isn't it called something else? But I think that's lean. So on March 5th, a friend escorted him to the mental health clinic where Thomas told the staff that he would step in front of a bus if he could not speak to someone. The clinic staff told him he should go to an emergency room, and they had a judge prepare an emergency detention order. Thomas did not report to the emergency room that day. About 3 weeks later, Thomas stabbed himself in the chest went into the emergency room at Texarkana Medical Center in nearby Denison. He told the hospital personnel that he was trying to cross over into heaven. Clearly, this man is insane, right? All of this stuff is going on before is happening before the ultimate event of him taking his wife's ex-wife, or his baby's mama's life, and the two kids, right? And you seen in the front of that what he did to him. I don't want to have to repeat that again, how graphic that was and what he did to those kids, to all three of the victims, right? When the wound was determined not to be life-threatening, an emergency room physician began arranging for a psychiatric commitment. While these arrangements were being made, Thomas walked out of the hospital. They was about to lock his butt up. They was about to put him in there. Probably a 72-hour hold. That's probably as long as they could have held him on one of those mental health holds, right? Now, the physician notified the Denison Police Department that Thomas might be dangerous, but they apparently had no contact with Thomas, who walked the few miles to his home in Sherman. Now, on March 27, 2004, as we said before, 2 days after coming to the emergency room, Thomas went to Bourne's third-floor apartment, kicked the door open. Bourne's boyfriend was at work, but Bourne was at home with the two children. Thomas fatally stabbed her, cut open her chest, pulled a portion of her lung, thinking he was actually removing her heart. He went into the bedroom shared by the 4-year-old son and Bourne's 13-month-old daughter. Man, this is graphic, bro. Fatally stabbed both the children and cut their hearts out of their chests. Yeah, I don't care. Let me stop right there, honestly. And this is graphic. If you got any kids in there, please don't have them around. I wish I could have, before I read this, I wish I could have gave you guys this warning, right? But this is just too graphic, right? Regardless, I don't care, man. To me, I after reading this part, yeah, if you crazy, okay, well, fine and dandy. After he killed the children, Thomas stabbed himself 3 times in the chest. Expecting to die from his wounds, Thomas went into the living room, lay next to Bourne's body. When he realized he was not dying, he placed the victim's organs in his pockets and walked to his house. He didn't stab himself too hard, right? Once he returned home, he placed the organs in a bag and threw them in the trash. Thomas called his wife's parents and left a voicemail. This is the voicemail, people. Check this out. Sherry, this is Andre. I need y'all's help. Something bad is happening to me, and it keeps happening, and I don't know what's going on. I need some help. I think I'm in hell. I need help. Somebody needs to come and help me. I need help bad. I'm desperate. I'm afraid to go to sleep. So when you get this message, come by the house, please. Hello? That's the message this fool left, right? Thomas turned himself into the Sherman Police Department, telling officers that he thought God wanted him to kill the victims. He said he killed each victim with a separate knife because he thought that there were demons inside the victims. If the victim's blood was allowed to mix, he reasoned the demons might survive. Thomas was taken to the hospital and underwent chest surgery, right? Now, hey, people, get him out of here. Am I wrong for saying that? Even with the mental health, even though we know this guy, I think he felt like he done something. This is horrible, people. I think he felt something so bad, right, that he didn't want to live with himself. So he probably was being haunted by the images in his mind, and just seeing what he did. So he took his eyes out. You know what I mean? That's karma. So he took his eyes out. He probably couldn't even stomach those images, right? I'm just saying. I'm just throwing that out there, right? 5 days after the murders, Thomas was in jail awaiting trial. He removed his right eye with his bare hands. According to one source, he had been reading the Bible when it came to Matthew 5:29, which said, if your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out. Right. Yeah, man. And then he did it again, right? In 2008, took the other one out, and he ingested that one, right? Now, coming up on, what is that? April Because they're about to get him up out of here, people. And I don't want to be sounding like I'm callous, but it was callous what he did. It was just devastating what this dude did to this family, did to these poor children, right? You know, did to somebody that he said that he loved, man. You don't do that to people, bro. If your psychosis is that bad, I mean, it was pretty bad. I'm not going to deny that it wasn't bad, but the shit that he did to them, man, I just can't get over that, bro. But yeah, this young man is, how old is he? I think he's only like 39 right now, right? I think this dude is only like 39 years old. And I think he's scheduled to be executed in April. I think it's April. Let me get that. If I can find it. I think it's April 5th or something like that. Damn, I'm sorry, people. But his execution is coming up. Put it that way. Yeah, his execution is coming up. Real quick here. And I don't know how you people feel about taking other people's lives, but what this guy did was just horrible. And how can you not? I mean, if that was your family member, right? You know, how would you feel? Would you have any argument about the state putting this guy to death? I don't know. Just tell me. Leave me a comment in my comment section. I could be wrong, you know. Maybe some people don't feel that way. But Rowdy Nation TV, do me a favor. Click that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, so anytime I drop a video, you guys can be notified. We out of here.